Morning, Anya. How's everyone doing? Morning, guys.
Can't see this video. Michael's not.
It's literally, it's like 3.5 seconds of it's like the tail of him catching and doing a dance for the kids through the window, and but she catches and she goes, oh stop, and that's the whole video. You didn't even get any of the dance in the video because she sees that he's held the camera up before, because it looked like in the photo she's dancing, but in the video it's literally this. That's the whole video. He did. He should have been more stealth.
You can see
Morning.
the bell tower. It's so foggy.
Yeah, it's very foggy.
Wow.
It's the foggiest of fogs. How did everyone do in fantasy?
For all we know, the bluff doesn't exist anymore.
That's right, the bluff is gone, you guys. The bluff is gone. How did everyone do? How did everyone's fantasy teams do? Babe, how did your fantasy? Anya, you lost. I lost in our league. You won?
My utterly pathetic team dragged itself, butt scraping on the ground. Straight.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, Amanda.
Like a dog with a butter shoe, dragging itself in the grass, onto the pavement, genital scraping as well. That's what they did.
That's what they did. Well, I won.
We won, but there's a lot of shame involved.
Yeah, no, of course.
There's a lot of shame.
Did you see the Jets
the
fired
owner's
their coach?
staring at me while I'm doing it, and I feel they fired Robert Saleh.
Apparently, Avery said, "Did you see the Jets fired their coach?"
Robert Saleh sucks. They should fire him.
Okay.
Do you know why he got fired though?
I don't.
Because Aaron Rodgers.
I didn't even know he got fired, so how could I know why?
Well, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers doesn't like him.
Oh, and Aaron Rodgers is the
gets
most
his
important.
ways.
Yes.
Wow.
All right. Well,
That's such a Jets thing to do.
the Jets are my defense team. Apparently, Amanda's saying that he got fired because the Vikings won.
Well, they've lost too many games already.
Yeah. Morning, Sloth.
He's the scapegoat for it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: if Aaron Rodgers was like, no, this guy's great, we got to stick with him, they wouldn't have fired him. Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, she was kidding. Sorry, I misread the humor.
So she is right that if they won, they'd have to fire him.
Sure.
So in a way, she's full of it.
Good morning, Liz. We were just talking about football, which I know you're mourning because Liz's team not so good. No, her fantasy team did quite poorly on her behalf.
You won and lost, right?
I won one and lost one on the 2 leagues that I played in. I lost in our league, the book club league, basically, and then I won in the league I'm in with you, with your friends. She said that her entire team is dead to her now.
My team's dead to me and we won.
It's weird. It's weird. I am trying to decide for the week if I am going to play Jalen Hurts or Trevor Lawrence because Jalen Hurts is predicted for more points, but last week Trevor Lawrence got more points than Jalen Hurts is predicted for this week. So I'm like, do I keep him in?
Well, who's he playing next week?
That's a good question. I have to look.
We should look at the matchups.
Yeah.
Also, Jalen Hurts is getting back 2 receivers this week.
Wait, Amanda, I'm the most wonder. You're still in 3rd place. Is it because Ray's won so many? Is that why? Since we have secret husband here, can we ask him what auto pick usually? She's calling you out. Anya said when we were doing drafts and you were saying, "Oh yeah, auto picks usually win," and Anya did auto picks and she's losing, and she wants to know why you lied.
I didn't say auto picks
always
win. I said that auto picks. What I actually said is auto picks. If you look at it over all the drafts, perform better than people manually drafting.
That's fair.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you get to win if you auto picked. That's
funny though.
Than that, but
it's still funny.
Yeah.
It's very funny to me. Nope, nobody missed book club. We're just making coffee and talking football, and then we will start book club momentarily.
But what I was saying to you about Jalen Hurts is I saw an article that A.J. Brown and one of his other receivers are coming back this week. So
maybe he'll do better.
So he might do much better.
I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we should see if that's true first before you play Horseboy and see who Horseboy is playing.
Yeah.
Horseboy's coach was one loss from getting fired also.
Yeah, but then they won.
Yeah, still, they're still not. They're like they only have one win. They're not doing good.
They're only doing one win for the whole season?
Yes.
Dang, that's brutal.
Yeah, they're doing very bad.
Yeah, sounds like it. Tomato potato. Tomato potato. Yeah, so anyway, I'm feeling mediocre about one of my teams and good about the other one. I was predicted to lose in both, but they pulled it out because Trevor Lawrence did well and he won it for me. So, gotta give it up to Horseboy. You won by 2 points? Hey, you know what? A win is a win, Sophie. Doesn't matter. You could win by half a point and you're still winning. A win is a win. That's what we say.
You're quoting me right now.
Huh?
You're quoting me. So
yes.
You kept on telling me.
I know. Here you go, dear. You're welcome. Sophie and Liz are in a battle. Liz is in mourning over her team. She ended them because they're dead to her, of course.
Go on the waiver wire and maybe you can resurrect
I
them.
need a tight end. I don't know what I'm going to do because...
You're going to go on the waiver wire.
I'm going to have to because Travis has a bye week this week and they won't let me put any of my flexes in his place. Why is that? Hello?
Wait, what?
Travis,
Yes.
my tight end,
He's on
has a bye this week and they will not let me put any of my flexes in his place. Why?
You have to wait until the stuff's tallied today.
Oh.
Later today, you'll be able to move stuff around.
Oh, never mind. So I would have won, except my one RB got a concussion in the first quarter. That's pretty brutal. It has to be another tight end. It can't be a flex. Well, I don't have another tight end, so I guess I'm heading out to the waiver wire. He's in tight end.
Do you not have another tight end?
I don't.
And I'm sure you have someone on your bench that you can switch out with a temporary tight end. Just somebody that's not important. We can look at it together.
Okay. He's the only one on bye this week, so that's nice at least. You need a tight end in the tight end spot. It's a very foggy morning, y'all. Look at this. Foggy McFoggerson out there. People are wearing sweaters outside in Playa Vista.
That person's wearing shorts.
Okay. Well,
But
over here they're wearing sweaters.
But shorts and a jacket, which is what
Are they exercising?
Doesn't mean-
Is that why?
No, he does not look like an exerciser.
Judgy pants.
No,
Neither do we recently.
I don't look like an exerciser anymore.
I definitely don't. Ugh.
What happened?
I used to look like an exerciser. And then It's chilly here in the east, but it's supposed to be. It's medium here, but it's foggy. It's like for the last 3 days we've had a very strange fog.
Last 2 week.
Okay, for the last week
Since
we've
we
had a
got
really
home,
weird fog.
Yeah.
It's very strange. It's
coming
very
out of the ocean.
thick.
It's neat.
It was so thick yesterday that it looked like it was raining, even though it wasn't. That's how thick the fog was.
It's supposed to, I mean, we're supposed to get like
A storm today
weather warning rain today. Let's see if we still are.
at like noon, right?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Anya says it was raining in San Diego last night, so it's possible it's coming up here. I mean, that's a normal... That's true, Jack.
Yeah, I don't see it anymore.
Oh, okay, maybe it moved.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get reading. We are on chapter 8 today, which is very exciting.
It's weird because it says severe weather alert until Tuesday at 12 p.m. But the actual hour by hour has no rain.
Maybe they're just not sure where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you said it's not cold.
What do you mean?
She said she wants it to get cold here. She doesn't live that far from us. I mean,
Where does she live? Because
she lives inland from us, but not like a lot.
It was in the hundreds this weekend, and in the Chatsworth area.
That's true. But that she's not, you're not northeast of us, right? You're southeast of us, right?
But anywhere that far inland or inland, south or north is going to be hot.
That's true.
Unfortunately.
That's true. All right, let's find out what Josh and Essie are up to in chapter 8. Yes, lots. Okay, said Blessing, setting down Josh's drink on the table and lowering her voice. The team from here are 35 and the Hellions are on 24. And we'll have 47, unless the last player... Why am I New Jersey with her all of a sudden? Let's try that again. She's supposed to be Cockney. All I want is a room somewhere. The team from here are 35, and the Hellions are 24. That means... Okay, well, you're close to Long Beach and Carson. Oh, yeah, it should be nice. My QB got over 50 points in my family league. That's amazing, Sophie. That's amazing. My QBs couldn't even touch 50 points with a 10-foot pole if they had another QB on their shoulders. They're so bad compared to that. I don't even know what 50 points looks like. When one of them got to 20, I was like, ooh, 20. I was so excited. I could stack all of my QBs together, including the benched ones, and still never hit 50. That means we gotta beat this 8 and we're 47, unless the last player from Cold Christmas beats the 6s, in which case we're screwed. Josh took a sip of his beer, and it tasted the same as it usually did, so he assumed that nobody had slipped anything into it, which meant that this whole evening was real and not a drug-induced hallucination. Josh, you're our last player, Blessing said. What? No, I can't be your last player. Avery nodded and laid down a piece of string with a few bits of chestnut still clinging to it. Beside it were the remains of 2 more conkers. The fourth was a slightly battered horse chestnut gleaming in the pub's low light. It had been threaded on a piece of string that everyone insisted on calling a lace for some reason. That was an 11er, he said sadly. That barrel from Cold Christmas is just a menace. There was much more about this gang of conkers that Josh didn't understand. He had been told how to play and the basics of scoring. To wit, you hit the other guy's conker until it fell apart. To gain any points he'd accumulated, but then the basic question of why still remained unanswered. Still, Essie had asked if he'd like to play, and he found himself completely unable to say no. Sharon, the barmaid, liked to tease him. He'd developed... Like to tease... Yeah, apparently, right? I'm going to read that sentence again because I don't really understand it. Sharon, the barmaid, liked to tease him he'd developed a liking for Essex blondes, and Josh just smiled and laughed along with everyone else. But if he was honest, he preferred an Essex redhead. Said redhead was nodding at him encouragingly. Come on, Josh, if you win this, you can have your name immortalized in a poem on the conker wall. Josh glanced at the wall of framed conkers. He'd honestly thought she'd been joking when she told him that a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I got that after, Liz. It just, the structure of the sentence threw me, because I would have said Sharon the barmaid liked to tease him that he'd developed, but it just said like to tease him he'd developed. There's no like that he developed. Hey, Jennifer. So I was like, I don't understand what this sentence structure is. I feel like it needed that, not conjunction, but just something. I don't know. You were explaining beer. I don't know anything about beer, so feel free. No, you don't have to shush. I was just confused, but you're right. I also didn't get the beer thing at first either. So you were right on, we're both right. Even when he ventured to look up the Gang of Conkers online, he'd come to the conclusion that it was a playground game, and he figured that trophies were some sort of eccentric decoration, like the horse brasses that were hammered into the low beams. But no. Here he was, preparing to swing his 12er at an 8er from somewhere called the Hellion Bumpstead. Are you totally sure that you didn't put anything in my drink? He said, but right then Sharon bellowed, all right, final round. Josh from the resting witch face versus Phyllis from the aliens. Everybody outside, if you get a conker shell on the floor, you damn well pick it up. Thank you. Essie dragged him from his chair, even as he was trying to take another sip of beer, and he grabbed the conker on its string and followed her outside. Okay, champ, she said, facing him as he stood waiting for the somewhat elderly Phyllis to join them. You ready? I guess. Essie danced from foot to foot and made a jabbing motion with her fists. Her hair flew all about her face, red tendrils bouncing and curling. I said, are you ready? Josh smiled. Yeah, I'm ready. You psyched up? Yeah, I'm psyched up. Are you gonna smash your nut against that old lady's nut? He sputtered out a laugh. Yeah, Essie, I'm sorry. I can't say that. I can't say that. Say it, champ. There are people here, and that guy is old enough to be my grandpa. As they both glanced over, the elderly chap in the flat cap grinned at them. Bloody slaughter, lad, he said. Josh looked back at Essie. I understand absolutely nothing about this country, he said. She grabbed his shoulders in both of her hands and rubbed them as if he was an actual boxer, and she was preparing him for the final round of a championship fight. At least, that's what she started out by doing, but it brought her much closer. Close enough to see for him to see the freckles on her nose and the fullness of her lips. It was so pink. Her lips were so pink and so plump and soft, and they tasted so good. The memory of it filled up his senses, and the warm scent of her skin, the softness of her hair in his hands, the little sounds that she made as they consumed each other. Just one kiss. It had just been one kiss that had kept him up all night ever since. She'd been friendly ever since then. She'd replied to his jokey text. She'd invited him to join their conker team tonight. But she hadn't made any reference to that kiss. The sort of man Maya told him he'd never be. He'd talked to Essie about it. He'd asked her how she felt, if she wanted to go for dinner, maybe do some more kissing, maybe more than kissing. He should do it now. Maybe when he won. Maybe she'd want to date a winner. He looked down into her fascinatingly flecked eyes, and he was sure he saw the same desire reflected right back at him. All right, you two, get a room, called Blessing, emerging from the pub with their drinks. Essie blinked behind her glasses, and Josh's face heated. Said Essie and stepped back. He was gratified to see that her cheeks were turning pink too. You go get him, champ. If he offers to walk you home, say yes, she thought. Essie watched Sharon sweep up all the conker shards away as the Hellions congratulated Phyllis, and Josh was borne back into the pub on a tide of commiseration. Well, we nearly won, she said to Blessing. Yeah, nearly isn't winning, a bet, said Blessing, and she took a sip of her drink. It had a pink umbrella in it. You should have let me play. You cheat. I do not cheat. It isn't my fault if my opponents choose conkers that are unripe, said Blessing with an injured air of who would dream of thinking she hexed her opponent's conquer. And anyway, this is at least half your fault. How is it my fault? Essie protested, peering through the pub windows for a glimpse of Josh. Mrs. Sockburn dropped out. We needed another player, and Josh has good hand-eye coordination. Yeah, I'll bet he does, said Blessing over her pink umbrella. Hey, you stop that. Me? I done nothing to the pair of you. All that mooning around is your own doing. You should have seen yourselves, honestly, Essie. I thought you were going to start going at it right there in the car park. Oops, we got Boston. I'm sorry, you guys. I used to be so good at voices. What happened to me? Essie turned away, but she knew Blessing would be able to tell that she was blushing. The truth was, it wouldn't have taken an awful lot for her to have dragged Josh behind the bushes and had her wicked way with him. The way his eyes lit up when she said something that made him laugh, the frown of concentration when he was playing a game as silly as Conker's, the feel of his shoulders under her hands. Dear God, she couldn't remember the last time she'd been half as into someone as this. She could hail from Massachusetts, maybe, but sounds like she's from Essex. Except that she could remember. The memory of all those 3 little pink ratty noses made her shudder. And worse, the sheer fury in Sean's voice, the terror of what she had done to Sean. She couldn't hurt Josh like that. She couldn't hurt anyone like that ever again. She couldn't be with anyone normal or have a normal life. She tried, and it backfired spectacularly every single time. She was running a risk of even being friends with Josh, because what if she forgot herself around him? Do you just sometimes wish that, she began. What? That you were normal, she thought, but Blessing loved being a witch and she really wouldn't understand. So Effie huffed out a breath and watched the cloud into the cold air. Why don't you just tell him you like him? Blessing said kindly. He likes you too. When he came round the other day, he was totally looking for you. He came around? Again? As he shook her head. But wait, looking for me? He's not supposed to know that... Blessing shrugged. I don't mean he was literally looking for you, love. It was more sort of, you know, she waved her hand expressively, a yearning. Yearning? Essie rolled her eyes. Well, he can yearn off. Before Blessing could object, she held up her hand. Nothing good can come of this, can it? He can't know where we live. The house is insane. We're all insane, and we owe him $250 in back rent. Blessing gave her a knowing look, and if none of that was true... Blessing gave her a knowing look. And if none of that was true, would you still want to... She made a crude gesture. Or would you find another excuse? Those aren't excuses. Okay, but they were. And she knew it. I have my reasons, Blessing. Blessing shrugged. But it turned into a shiver and she pulled her jacket around herself. All right. The temperature's plummeting. I can see you're in a bad mood. Come inside and have another drink. Essie glanced back through the window where Josh was being handed a yard of ale that he clearly didn't know what to do with. He was laughing. His cheeks were pink. His hair was flopping down onto his forehead, and he looked so handsome that Essie couldn't even stand it. No, she said and drained her glass. I'm going home. I have a busy week coming up. You have? Blessing said. I got those twins delivering on, she tilted her head as if in thought, Friday, I think. But what have you got? Essie couldn't answer that. She could feel it at the edge of her mind. It was like a dark cloud on the horizon, something tugging at her attention, but she couldn't get a hold of it. Or maybe she was just in a massive strop because she fancied the pants off of Josh Henderson and she couldn't damn well have him. I've got the house to run, and while you lot fanny about knitting the future and making fertility charms, she snapped, jamming her hands into her pockets, the words, well, I might as well make myself useful, hovered in the air in front of her. Blessing narrowed her eyes for a moment and then said, Fine. Tell Maud the Hellions won, will you? I'm sure she knitted it last week. Essie nodded and turned for home, leaving the warmth of the pub behind her as storm clouds gathered. Sienna had managed through a combination of sweet-talking, pregnancy sympathy, and massive tips to get Josh a list of white goods installed along with a full set of bedroom and living room furniture. The ancient threadbare carpets were banished to the dumpster that magically appeared outside, and the oak floorboards sanded and vanished. New curtains replaced the old. The house had resounded with the sound of carpentry for weeks now and the smell of constant paint. They even had a chimney sweep in to clean, and although Josh had a feeling that it was more to do with Essie than his sister, he also suspected that she was behind having the roof patched and the Rayburn service, because those were things that would have escaped Sienna's frivolous mind. Hey, Becca. Essie had been helpful about things like the chimney sweeps and getting someone to clear the gutters. She'd been warm and friendly when he met her at the pub and outright chummy at the Conquer tournament. But after that moment outside the pub when he'd been so distracted that he'd gone and lost the tournament, she just vanished. She couldn't really be mad about that, could she? Her replies to his texts hadn't betrayed any annoyance. He'd been inches from kissing her and then she just vanished. Maya had been right. He was pathetic. Josh kept himself busy, and he spoke to the solicitor about rents, which were eventually collected even though none of them would have covered even a single delivery arriving at the house. And he considered asking him if he knew of any work going on for a U.S.-trained lawyer. But the words stuck in his throat, and he never spoke them out loud. "Did you try this one?" the solicitor asked from his small, crowded office in the building even older than Josh's house. "Beldam House. We can't even seem to find it." Josh frowned at the papers on the desk. I thought I had, he said. I mean, I meant to. I've just been so busy. I'll take another swipe at finding it, I promise. But somehow he never did. And when the solicitor asked again, he couldn't remember why he didn't. "Well, maybe the house isn't even there anymore," he said, and nobody amended the records. "Probably. But it's strange that there's no mention of it in villages like Goodwinter. People remember who used to own what for generations back." Josh assured the man that he had asked in the pub, which seemed to be the repository for all local knowledge. He sent Essie a text to casually mention that he might be down there this evening. Cool. By the way, did you happen to take a picture of that bit of parchment?" She responded. Damn it, he did keep forgetting to do that. The parchment and the faded note that had been wrapped around it were in a Ziploc bag in the kitchen dresser. He hadn't known what to do with them, but somehow they did seem important. Yeah, I'll do it when I get home," he promised. But when he arrived home, there were workmen there taking out the kitchen cabinets. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered and yelled for his sister. "Oh, isn't it amazing?" she said, cozily ensconced on her new sofa with a support pillow and her new cashmere blanket. There was a ball of yarn and some knitting needles beside her, but she didn't appear to be doing anything with them. "It's someone Blessing knows, and they just had a cancellation." "To take out the old kitchen?" "Yeah, and fit a new one." "Duh," said Sienna. Josh glanced back at the kitchen, which looked slightly as if it had been B-O-B-E-D. B-O-M-B-E-D. I can't say the word on here, but, you know, explodey. "They just happened to have cabinets and things that would fit into this space already ready to go." "Well, apparently." She picked up a stick of celery from the plate loaded with it and dipped it into ketchup and ate it with every sign of enjoyment. Oh, God. "It fit this space exactly." "Josh, what is your point?" He gave up. "Fine. Did Blessing come by today?" Sienna nodded severely. "Not long now," she says. Blessing appeared to be the only means of estimating when Sienna's baby was due. Sienna herself didn't appear to have any idea or even any interest in finding out. Josh desperately wanted to know why this was and who the father of her child was, but whenever he tried to raise the subject, Sienna changed it. "I'm going to go out this evening," he said, "just for a couple of drinks. I won't be late." He watched her carefully. "If you would rather I didn't..." No, I just want to watch Bake Off, and you always complain through it." Sienna had discovered the rich treasure trove of British TV streaming services, and with the panoply of extremely wholesome, cozy competition shows where people baked cakes or sewed clothes or made pottery, Josh had nothing against them, but Sienna watched them all day long, for 7 hours of spotted dicks and soggy bottoms. He was climbing the walls. I don't know what that means, but it sounds weird. Great. Well, you know, if you have the slightest twinge of, "I'll call Blessing, okay?" "Yes, and then you call me right away." "Really, Josh?" Sienna mixed some ranch dressing with the ketchup. Oh, God, Sienna, please. Woman, what are you doing? "You don't have to be so anxious. Blessing has this all figured out." Yeah, she probably did. Essie's sister And given his own relationship with Sienna, he wasn't about to inquire about the details of that relationship. Might as well have made grown men walk into lampposts just by swinging her hips, but she appeared to be an extremely experienced and reassuring midwife. The house was filling up with baby paraphernalia and also books and leaflets. Sienna appeared to be more prepared than she had been when she arrived, only she still didn't seem very prepared at all. Sienna still seemed to have some sort of idea that the birth would just whiz by in a montage and it would all be over soon, and it was straight into a soft focused cooling over a delightful infant who would never refuse to go to sleep or cry all day for no reason or poop out the back of its diaper. Oh, it's a pudding. Okay, well that's good to know. Josh was really beginning to regret reading that particular chapter in the baby book. He should have probably had a word with Blessing, make sure Sienna wasn't relying on her too much. Maybe she'd be at the pub tonight. He sent Essie a text to ask, and then he hesitated in case she thought this meant he was interested in Blessing. He was not in a romantic sense anyway. She was extremely attractive, for sure, but Essie was the one who kept drawing Josh's attention, even if she was frustratingly private all the time. Essie came to Brook Manor Farm fairly frequently and, like Blessing, always waited to be invited in. Josh figured this was some sort of polite British thing and he didn't question it. He tried to find out where they lived, and every time they waved vaguely and said, "Oh, you know, just past the gallows lane." And Josh had utterly failed to find the place. "Sienna, do you know where Blessing lives?" he asked. She shrugged, already glued to the sight of an amateur baker attempting to make pedophores. "No, why?" "Does she live with Essie?" Sienna made a sound that was what might happen if a person started out to say "I don't know" and then removed all the consonants and most of the vowels and half translated it into a shrug. "Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to go see if I can find this Beldam house that's supposed to owe us rent," he said. "What house?" Sienna said vaguely, her eyes on the TV. "Oh, come on. You haven't even put it in the oven yet." He backed off and fetched his coat. The weather in Goodwinter had turned decidedly chilly as September gave way to October, and now Brook Manor Farm sported carved pumpkins outside the door, presumably for the entertainment of the small army of delivery and tradespeople who arrived every day, and the air smelled of wood smoke more often than not. The Yew Tree Inn was holding a Halloween party this weekend, and Sienna had vague plans to go dressed as a pumpkin or something. Josh had bought a load of candy in the expectation of trick-or-treaters, assured by Essie that they would come, even to his remote house. He also dusted off his tuxedo and bought a pair of cheap vampire fangs after Essie had explained to him that his usual plan of going as James Bond wouldn't wash in England. "Unless you're scared of James Bond," she added dubiously, "Halloween costumes are supposed to be scary, or at least spooky." "What are you going as?" he asked. "Oh, well, we always go as witches," she said. Oh, that's Essie, sorry, not Sienna. "Oh, we always go as witches," she said, and her smile looked somewhat particular. The people of Goodwinter had lived among the witches for longer than they knew. Certain things seeped into the collective memory, such as keeping the duck pond nicely kept, and never dressing as an old hag come Halloween. And they all knew deep down that if someone was in trouble, they could call on Beldam House. It was Blessing that they called on for births and Essie for deaths. No one ever questioned this. The air had turned decidedly cooler the last few days of October, and the weather forecasters talked about the area of high pressure and cold fronts making it feel like winter. Essie knew it had nothing to do with the wind blowing in from Siberia and everything to do with the crossing quarter day next week. Winter would arrive at 10:30 next Monday morning, and she knew this because she would be the one to summon it. She knew it in her bones. Said bones felt tight and achy today, and not just because of the impending winter. She sat on the bench outside Mrs. Sockburn's house, every muscle tight like concrete, and tried to hold in her tears. In her hands was a small doll with violet hair, and its arms were folded neatly across its chest. Later, she would bury it somewhere peaceful and plant some winter pansies. The old lady had called her last night. "Would you come and sit with me, love? I feel ever so peaky." And Essie had known exactly what was coming. She'd gone upstairs to Maud's room, where she passed a blanket made of knitted squares that matched the violet of Doris Sockburn's hair. And as she went downstairs, Prudence handed her a couple of ancient copper coins. "We'll speak her name," promised Avery, passing Mrs. Sockburn's poppet to Essie. It had begun to look decidedly thinner and paler the last few weeks. "I've got to attend a birth," said Blessing, who had her bag in her hand already. Twins is going to be a difficult one. She hesitated. I'll suggest Doris as a name. Won't they have suffered enough? Said Essie, but she accepted Blessing's kiss and went off to do her duty. She'd always done it. Even as a small child, she'd followed her mother as she visited the dying, made cups of tea, and mumbled along with whatever prayers the patients preferred. Sometimes family members called her in specifically, but mostly it was people like Mrs. Sockburn, who didn't want to be alone anymore. Now she sat on the bench in Mrs. Sockburn's tiny front garden in the cold afternoon air and stared at the midsummer common. Most of the trees had shed their leaves now, and the fierce wind was making short work of what they had left. But the old oak was still holding on, stately and as grand as ever. The tree had been there since before Beldam House had been built. Well, probably, as he didn't actually know how old the house was. She tried to find out once or twice, but when she looked in the library, all the books that might have been relevant had disappeared or refused to open. A couple translated themselves into what was either ancient runic system of writing or a toddler scribbling on the page. Essie suddenly remembered a hand nudging her crayon out of the way and a voice telling her, "Don't draw on that, dear. It's 400 years old." She watched a crow pecking around the grass that sloped down into the duck pond. The reeds there had turned yellow and brown now, awaiting somebody to come and clear them. Loose strife, she thought they were called. The wind blew through them, sighing a little. Will be well, 'tis the reed, she thought. The wind turned cooler. Essie? She looked up and there was Josh, ambling toward her with his hands in his pockets. Damn, he was handsome. After she'd done the ritual, and after Sienna had the baby, and after she'd figured out what was going on with the witch ball and Josh occasionally remembering Beldam House, she should probably try to go on a proper date with him. Maybe one that didn't end with her running away? She could control herself now. She could. She could. She'd restored the rats into ex-boyfriends, albeit with Avery and Prudence's help, and she'd given them a few bevies while they were still in a confused state, and then she'd taken them to the pub and got a couple of rounds in for them, and then she left. From the scuttlebutt around the village, it sounded like the three of them had gotten pissed and made plans to go to the World Cup together. So that was nice. They would have forgotten her all over again. Maybe a vague memory might surface here and there, but they'd put it down to alcohol and forget about it soon enough. They had lives to be getting on with. Maybe, Jack, maybe. As did Josh, with his smile fading as he strolled closer to her. Hey, what's wrong? She swiped at her eyes, and her glasses had splashes of tears on them. No, nothing. It was just the wind making my eyes run. Josh didn't look convinced. Are you waiting for someone? Essie had seen death many times. She knew it was a natural and necessary part of the grand cycle of the world. She hadn't even been particularly close to Mrs. Sockburn. None of this prevented her from bursting into tears. Hey! Then Josh was there beside her, taking her cold hands in his warm ones. It's okay. It's okay. No, I know it's okay, said Essie. It's not like she was young or it was a terrible shock. Most people didn't even like her. Like who? Josh glanced up at the house behind them. It was a traditionally built affair in red brick and flint, with a tiled roof and a small porch. The windows had been replaced with double glazing, and the back had been extended into a kitchen conservatory, and there was a small ensuite upstairs. It would probably sell quite nicely, although a new owner would probably turn the front garden into parking, which would be a shame, really. Mrs. Sockburn, she was housekeeping up at Brook Manor Farm, wasn't she? Didn't you know her? Josh frowned at the window by the front door. Essie had drawn the curtains even though it was only mid-afternoon. Yeah, our paths crossed, he murmured. Is she okay, or... Essie shook her head. I'm waiting for the undertaker. Undertaker? What happened? Essie sniffed and took off her glasses to wipe at her eyes with her sleeves. She had cancer, Josh. She didn't tell anyone. A lot of people in her generation still think cancer's a dirty word. She put her glasses back on, and Josh looked shocked. His hands were still holding hers. She has children, but they live miles away, and they never visited that I can remember. She said that I should contact them after she passed. I hate making calls like that. A thought occurred. Do you think they're going to sell this place? Maybe one of them will come live in it instead. If they do, maybe they can pay the market rate, said Josh, and he nodded at the house. Number 25 High Street. I own this house, Essie. You do? He didn't look very amused as he said, yeah, apparently I own half the village. Do you know how much money I make from that? She shrugged. Yeah, I make about 12 pounds a month. Are you kidding? I am not kidding. If I could get tenants for the Box Cottage, Willow Barn, and number 3 Rose buildings, I could be coining in a rate of 30 shillings a month. 2 pounds 10, Essie corrected absently. How did this country ever function with such, just like, Harry Potter money? Said Josh in exasperation. There's one house I can't even find, and apparently they haven't paid rent since 1746. Essie felt her body stiffen away from him slightly, and the wind whipped around them. It's probably not even there anymore, she said. But there should be some sort of record of it, right? Some local news item or something if it had been pulled down or there was a fire or it turned into a hotel or something. I mean, there are people in the pub, he waved an arm across the common at the yew tree, who still talk about it all the time. Who talk about the time that Elizabeth came to visit. Yeah, she stayed at Brook Manor, Essie said. That place did burn down like 100 years ago or so. Brook Manor, right. There's like half a wall in a field a mile from my house. I guess that's what's left of it. Oh, is that so? Essie said, scanning the street for the sight of the undertaker's vehicle. You just now got it, Avery? Ridiculous. I know this because at least 3 people in the pub told me. So I went for a walk the other week and I found where the house used to be. There are old maps that you can see online. But you know what's not on the old maps? Said Josh. Beldam House. Essie took her hands from his and jammed them into her pocket. I don't know what to tell you, she said. No, nor does anybody else. I've walked the lengths of Gallow Lane today and I can't find a single hint of it. It's weird, Essie. Why does no one know about this place? Because none of them need it, she thought. Doris Sockburn had needed Essie last night, so she remembered the phone number of Beldam House. People who were sick or desperate remembered how to find the place, but in the village pub, they didn't need it, so they just forgot, like everyone else. I really couldn't say, Josh, said Essie. Look, on the bright side, you'll be able to get a new tenant in this place now and charge them whatever it is you want. It's a really desirable spot. The kitchen needs replacing and the bathroom's old-fashioned, but it should get a fair whack. Just wait for them to remove the corpse first. It's still warm. The sky had really clouded over. Hey, no, don't do that, said Josh, immediately retreating. Don't be like that. I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry your friend died. I really am. I was just saying... Well, don't say, snapped Essie. Doris Sockburn hadn't even been her friend. She hadn't really been anyone's friend. She was just a part of the village, just as Essie was a part of the village, and she deserved some basic respect. There was a spell on Beldam House to make people forget it existed, but there was no such thing on number 25, the High Street, and Josh had completely forgotten about it anyway. Yeah, you don't know a single thing about this place, she said. You just turn up, just casually owning half a dozen properties and bitching about the rent. And what do you even know about the people who live in them? Do you know number 3 Rose Cottages is derelict because the last tenant, his wife? Do you know that the woman who lived in Box Cottage was an agoraphobe and the house just rotted around her? Do you know that Willow Barn is empty because it's where a farmhand was crushed by a tractor? Do you know any of those things, Josh? Josh looked appalled. Essie hadn't realized that she'd gotten to her feet and was glaring down at him, but she didn't see any reason why she should stop now. And do you know why you can't find Beldam House? It's because you don't need to. Collecting rent isn't a need, especially when your sister appears to be as rich as Croesus? I don't really know this name. Hey, I don't like living off her, Josh began. Oh no, I can tell, Essie snapped. You hate it so much that you're refusing all the deliveries and all the treats people come into your house, aren't you? You hate it so much that you walk past my goddamn house every bloody week trying to collect fucking rent. What? Shit, she'd said it out loud. Overhead, the sky blackened. Your house, said Josh. He was on his feet now. Beldam House is your house? No, said Essie, and the rain started to fall. Look, you won't find it. It exists, and you live there? He was advancing on her now. The front garden was really not big enough for advancing. What are you doing hiding behind a tree? Essie, there's a rental agreement on that house. There's a contract, and unless you can prove that it's been terminated, then it still exists. Oh, so what are you, a lawyer? Yeah, said Josh, swiping the rain out of his eyes. I am, actually. Or I was. I quit because it was soul-destroying and I like having a soul, damn it. He seemed to realize that he'd gotten off track. Look, I know how contracts work, Essie, and I don't suppose that they're much different on this side of the Atlantic. A lawyer. The man who'd broken the witch ball and remembered her house was a goddamn lawyer.
That late October day was now as cold as midwinter. Steam clouded in front of Essie's face as she breathed. "What was your father's name?" she asked. What the hell does that have to do with absolutely anything?" Car lights flashed along the road. It was mid-afternoon and as dark as night, and Essie saw the words "Private Ambulance" written on the side of the van. She fumbled for Mrs. Sockburn's key and removed it from her pocket. If he was Mrs. Sockburn's landlord, he could damn well let the undertaker in himself. "Tell me your father's name, Josh." The cold light of the ambulance headlights put Josh's face into a terrible shadow. Rain dripped from his chin as he said, "Edward Mason Hopkins." Lightning split the sky, and Josh flinched as if he'd been electrocuted, but Essie was turned to the stone, staring at him in absolute horror. Hopkins, the kin of Hop, the son of Hob, the lawyer, son of Hob. The premonition hadn't been a warning about her witchfinder who'd been dead for 350 years. It had been a warning about Josh. And as if a magnet drew it, her gaze turned to the flowers growing on the midsummer common. Under the relentless downpour, tiny purple crocuses battled to stay upright, and their orange stamens were sinking under the weight of the rain until they looked like forked tongues. When she blinked, she saw the monster from Maud's knitting behind her eyes. "Essie?" said Josh, and Essie threw the key at him and ran. The downpour was torrential as Josh squelched home in the unseasonable darkness. He'd let the undertaker in and explained that he was the landlord, but otherwise he didn't know the deceased well, and he fled as soon as was decently possible. There hadn't been any point of trying to follow Essie. The undertaker, a polite and gentle woman who had assured Josh that everything was under control, had just arrived, and anyway, Essie had simply vanished into the darkness and the pounding rain. Josh had been in Goodwinter long enough to know that there were a dozen streets and alleys and pathways that she could have taken. She'd been hiding from him all this time, after all. Hey, Grace. Hey, Brittany. Never telling him where she lived. And all this time, he'd been trying to find the place, and she'd been hiding it from him, laughing at him, lying to him. How many times had she met him at the pub and then silently sniggered to herself over the deception? She knew everything about this place. The first night when she'd walked him home, poking fun at his fear and making it clear who held the upper hand. She knew the derelict houses that he owned and why they weren't lived in. She knew that he was living off his sister because, once again, Josh Henderson had failed to make his mark. The lights of Brook Manor Farm glowed out at him across the driveway. Sienna had every light in the goddamn place on, just because she could. Profligate with her money, flaunting it at him. As he stormed closer, he could make out the tarps covering the building materials and the dumpsters piled high with debris. She moved in and immediately started making this house her own. Oh my gosh, Josh, where have you been? It's simply biblical out there. Sienna stood in the doorway, wrapped in a cashmere blanket that probably cost more than his last paycheck. Her hair was beautifully styled for just sitting at home and watching TV, and her nails were manicured. And suddenly Josh was 10 years younger, standing at the doorstep of his father's huge mansion, the poor relation coming out to beg for help because no matter what he did or tried to do, he would always be his father's unwanted son and Sienna's unwanted brother. "Josh?" "Go to my room," he snapped. Because it was his room. Well, just about his room. "Are you okay?" He stalked past her into the kitchen, and every light was on. "Oh my God, could you just learn how to use a light switch?" he exploded. "They go off as well as on." "All right, Mr. Light Switches, everything off the second he leaves the room," Sienna laughed. Yeah, he did. He always had. He remembered the meter whizzing above the door of the apartment he lived in when he was a kid. "Do you know how much all this costs? Do you even know what an electricity bill even is?" "It's all taken care of. I had it set up when Oh yeah, you took care of it. You're paying for it now. I can pay for my own goddamn electricity, Sienna." She took a step back. "I know you can," she said slowly. "I was just trying to help." "Help? Sienna, look at this place. It's like Las Vegas in here. Just turn off a goddamn light sometime, huh?" She looked confused and a little bit hurt. Clutching her blanket, his sister said, "But I'm paying for it." "So I don't care. I don't care who's paying for it." He was too angry to make any sense now, and Josh stormed around the kitchen, flicking switches. "It's my house, Sienna. Do you understand that? This is my goddamn house." "I know," she said. I'm running things by you. If you don't like it, you can just say? When do I get a chance to say anything? You turned up here and started ordering things and fixing things and installing things. What even is this? He gestured wildly at a plastic thing on the countertop. It's a bottle sterilizer, she said quietly. For the baby's bottles? Josh, what's going on? He glared at the bottle sterilizer, which was probably quite sensible and normal, but he was too rattled to even think properly. Essie had lied to him. She'd laughed at him. She controlled him, just like Sienna was doing now, just like Maya had done, just like his mother had done. This is my house, he said. And it was his. He owned it. For some reason, his father had left him this and nothing else. Josh had nothing else. You could go anywhere in the world, be anywhere, and you had to come here to my house and make it yours? If you don't like it, she began sharply. Maybe I don't like it. I didn't see you do anything to fix the place up, she fired back. When did I have the chance? You swaned in here and took control like I can't even fix my... You can't, Sienna spat. And just assumed that I'd be fine with it because I'm just Josh, huh? Josh the doormat, and you can walk in here and tell me that you're going to help me and I'm going to help you raise this baby. I didn't say... Which you never even told me about until you ran out of options, Josh said, because you don't, what, even trust me enough to tell me who the father is? Sienna looked away, and for a moment she didn't move. Fuck, he'd said too much. Look, he began, and she shook her head. And then she went to the dresser and picked up her keys and calmly walked out of the house. Sienna! But by the time Josh reached the door, she was getting into the car. And by the time he reached the car, she was driving away. Essie didn't even remember walking back to Beldam House. She might have run. She might have flown. The sky was dark as pitch. The rain was hammering down so hard that it would have hurt if she'd been less angry, and the sky flashed bright with lightning. Josh Henderson was Josh Hopkins. He had lied. He lied. What else was he going to do? The house looked dreadful when she reached it, a towering monstrosity of black stone, crooked turrets and lurching roofs. Gargoyles leered from every corner, spewing filthy water. Ivy coiled over the front door, and Essie had to physically fight it before she could shove the damn thing open and fall inside to stand dripping on the flagstones. Avery stood on the stairs, and Essie could tell that they were in some sort of distress because they had on lipstick and earrings on the left side and a beard on the right side of their face. They had turned. Oh, I see. Good. Thank God you're back. Don't ask, Essie snarled. She was soaked to the skin and burning with anger. No, wait. Do ask. Do you know who the lawyer, the son of Hob, is? Look, forget about that, said Avery as a shadow fell on the stairs above them. Forget about it? Are you insane? Maud's Knitting has a monster. We will contain it, came a cool voice from the upstairs above Avery, and Essie faltered. But she couldn't remember any more words. She watched, dumbfounded, as a long red skirt came into view and dainty leather slippers beneath it. A white hand appeared on the banister. The monster is the lawyer, son of Hob. We will contain it, as we have always contained it. A tight-waisted bodice appeared, full sleeves and a square lace collar, fat coils of red hair framing a white, red-lipped face. But we must hurry, she said. Essie swallowed and stared up at the only person who had ever silenced her. Hello, Mother, she said. Uh-oh. Josh being Maddie Pants raised her mother from the dead. Oh, my sticker slipped. Oh, that's no fun. I'll have to fix that. Apparently, I told you guys it was going to be a long chapter. I warned you. I warned you ahead. They said it was a long one. A lot of stuff happened. My goodness. My goodness. Woo! Well, that was certainly something. They both think the other lied, and they're both Maddie Pants, and it's causing the weather to change and her mom to be risen from the painting. I wanted to say dead, but we knew her mom was in the painting, still able to change. So I guess something crazy's going on, y'all. Something crazy is going on. All right, so just a reminder, we have Roll for Slime After Dark tonight. It will start at 4:30 Pacific time. And if you need to sign up for one of those because you are at a Roll for Slime level, please do so. If you are an October birthday, you can get on the wait list for that in the same post. Those will all ship out tomorrow. I don't have pretty much anything else. That's going to be pretty much it for the day. I am very, very nearly done with getting pre-orders made, so those will be going out shortly. We're real close to being done. Last night I made Candy Corn Crunch and Serial Killer, which were 2 of the options for Slime of the Month. That's amazing, Anya. I love that. So that is also handy dandy, and those will start going out. I can't think of anything else. That's pretty much the whole kit and caboodle. So yeah, I predicted about 2 weeks until 10 days, 2 weeks until pre-orders would start going out. And that's feeling about right because today's the 8th and I'm almost done. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Everyone will get them before Halloween easily. It's no probs. And that's it. That is it. I will see you all at 4:30. Have a great day till then.